Ready? Yep. Okay. Welcome to the 2026 Wage Committee. For those who want to ask any questions in advance of what the council will do, first up, Mr. Steve Sturgis.
Yep, for the record, my name is Steve Sturgis, Chief Deputy of the Sheriff's Office. So I just had a few points I wanted to share with you going into next year. Gary's going to allow me to handle the majority of the budget this year since he's retiring. The current thing I wanted to talk about was the rank structure. So this is the current rank structure of the Sheriff's Office. I left the Sheriff's Office since he's the elected official, but this is how we have the department kind of broke up. The top three there, Chief Deputy, Major, and Captain, plus the Sheriff, they're kind of the administration or the leadership of the agency. The Major and the Captain, they will fill in wherever is needed. They'll go out, help patrol, they'll do transports, they'll sit at the courthouse if we're short over there. So they kind of fill wherever is needed. You have 12 patrol officers. That includes the 1 lieutenant. And we have those patrols broken up into 6 shifts, or I'm sorry, 6 officers over 2 shifts. Then you have your 3 detectives, 2 school resource officers, 1 at Bar Eve, 1 at North Davies, and then 3 deputies assigned to the courthouse.
Do they work 12-hour shifts then?
Patrol works 12-hour shifts, and it's from 6A to 6P or 6P to 6A.
Okay.
So of the 24 officers, half of them are assigned to patrol, serving the citizens of Davis County. But this is the current rank structure, and it's a little bit lopsided, and that's no one's fault. But typically, the lieutenant was part of the upper brass, so to say. There was no rank on patrol. If you look down at the detectives division, all the rank runs through the detectives division. And so there were some times when you would have a detective sergeant who maybe has 5 or 6 years experience, but there was no rank on patrol. So you got an 18-year patrol officer out there holding no rank. And so does that detective sergeant really outrank the 18-year patrol officer? On paper, he does, but in the real world, we all know who he's going to call if he encounters some situation he's not experienced yet. So what I would like to do is, we have 2 lieutenants on the payroll already. Adam Hunt is the 1 lieutenant you see on patrol. He actually works patrol, so he's the first one we have who's assigned to patrol. I would like to move the lieutenant detective's position up to the other patrol shift and have a 2nd lieutenant on that patrol. And then the lieutenant detective's position, make that a captain's pay grade. So if you turn the paper over, this is the proposed rank structure. So you'd have your upper brass, you'd have, so here if you look, you got your chief deputies, your major, 2 captains, 1 kind of over patrol, 1 over detectives division, 2 lieutenants, 1 on each patrol shift, then you still got your 2 detective sergeants. And so the only adjustment that needs to be made is the increase from the lieutenant detective, just make that a captain's pay. That's the only salary that needs to be adjusted. And then everything else would stay the same.
So this will give you a better supervision, you're saying, on the...
It does.
Yep.
It cleans up and balances the rank structure within the agency. And then at the end of the day, a lieutenant does outrank a sergeant, so that's been eliminated. But yeah, it cleans up, balances the rank structure a little easier. Yes. And again, all it involves is adjusting that 1 salary from a lieutenant detective just up to the captain's pay. So whether you're a patrol lieutenant or a lieutenant detective, or you're a patrol captain or detective captain, they're paid the same grade. So that's all I have on rank.
What does that mean in dollars?
I think I should have looked at that this morning. It's maybe $1 plus some change from a lieutenant to a captain. It is an increase.
I mean, on your current proposal, it's basically a couple grand for the year or something like that.
At the most.
Yeah.
You're changing 1 salary up to a captain.
Gotcha.
Yes. So that's all I have on rank. The other thing I want to talk about is Chuck Milton.
Yeah.
Chuck Milton he's a major. He's number 3 in command. He's been with the agency for 41 years total. This is his 35th year as a deputy. He is an asset to the agency. I'd hate to lose the guy. He's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. But our pension allows the option to do what's called an in-service retirement. And what that is, it allows the deputy to retire, yet maintain employment with the sheriff's office. So if this were allowed for Chuck, there would be some stipulations attached to it. So Chuck would be assigned, I would decrease his pay from that of major down to a patrolman and assign him to the courthouse. What that does is, it's similar to hiring another officer who retired from any other agency. They would be drawing their law enforcement retirement, working for us. Our folks should have the same option. And it's more beneficial as well because again, we get to keep Chuck and his knowledge and experience. He knows Davis County. Davis County knows him. He's a respected and established individual as a person and as an officer in the community. And again, he would be assigned to the courthouse, which then would allow us to take the young men over there, put them on patrol. Courthouse position really is for your kind of senior guys. And the young, you know, we just hired a new officer, Nathan Cox. He's 22. He's young, enthusiastic. He wants to be out there fighting bad guys, if you will, but he's stuffed in a box right now. Okay, so this would allow that to happen. So the merit board does have to approve this as well. The merit board does the hiring, firing, and retiring of officers. They would have to approve that as well. So we'll probably be reaching out to them later this year to run this by them as well. If they approve it, I would certainly email you all and let them know what their decision was. If they didn't approve it, I'd let you know that as well. So, but if there's one person I'd like to do that for, it would be for Chuck Milton. The reality is this has been done before in the past under other sheriffs, not Gary, but just not with this level of clarity and transparency.
I'm gonna make sure I understand it.
Yes.
So Chuck is a major.
He is a major,
You're gonna take him from his major's pay down to
a patrolman.
patrolman. And you're gonna promote one of the,
Then he'd be drawing his
yeah,
retirement.
I got that part. So
And
he's
then-
gonna get his retirement, plus he's gonna be getting paid patrolman
Correct.
for the courthouse duty.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I would allow him to wear his rank insignia since he earned it, but pay-wise, he's going to
Oh.
be receiving that of a patrolman. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then
He's not drawing now for 7 years. He could start drawing when he was 55.
Chuck
So
is,
he saved what, 200,000?
Uh, th-
350,000.
that's a good point. Chuck, so Chuck is, and JR, they're both age eligible, and Chuck is maxed out. So Chuck is, if you do the math, Chuck's probably working for, I don't know what a major gets paid, 62,000 a year maybe. Chuck's probably working.
66, 845.
Okay, so Chuck's probably working for $20,000 a year. If he retired, he'd probably have a pension of 40 to 50,000 a year, maybe 45,000 a year. So he's, like I said, and Chuck probably could have retired 5 years ago. So he saved by not doing that and continue working for 60 grand a year. Saved money as well on the retirement side. But then that would also allow me to promote another individual up to the major rank. And it would kind of allow me to solidify the administration that I want for next year.
Obviously, he's fine with that.
So I've come into you guys first, then I'm gonna go to the merit board, and then I'm gonna approach him.
So he didn't say he was retiring, he just said.
Correct.
Gotcha.
If I tell him that this has been approved, and he says, I have no interest in retiring right now, then it's a
Gotcha.
mute point. But
Right. I just didn't know if he came to you and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go, you know what I mean?
he
Okay.
has not.
I'm still confused. Okay, I understand the Chuck part.
Yes,
Good with that. Okay, so then you're gonna promote, if that happens, you're gonna promote someone up to the major job,
No, not, you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
and
Switching
a
positions.
courthouse deputy's gonna move up
Patrolman.
The patrol.
into the patrol.
So probably one of these senior patrol, well, I don't know, it could be any of these other senior guys, you know, I'd have to make that decision.
Yeah, I'm not-
Yeah, so,
I'm not asking, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the,
yeah, Chuck's gonna
Yes.
go down, and a few people are gonna step up.
gotcha.
Yes, sir.
So no new positions, just a restructure of what you've got.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, the only one we're doing is the lieutenant to captain's pay
Right.
if we decide to do that.
Right.
That's the only one.
That's the
we're
only
doing.
move.
Correct.
That's the only increase, yeah. The other thing I want to talk about briefly was, and this is probably something that could be handled, I think, through an additional appropriation later in the year, kind of wanted your opinion on it, is, you know, Gary's retiring at the end of the year. I've learned Diane McWilliams, who's our record clerk, will also be retiring at the end of the year. She will have a payout of some hours. I don't know how many or how much that is right now. But my ask was going to be that Gary's and Diane's longevity for 2027, if that could just be paid this year in 26. If it could be added to one of their paychecks later in the year, that way, starting next year in 27, there's no money owed to any retired employees, sheriff's office.
A policy issue.
That will-
It's not written in the policy.
Yeah, it would increase. if Gary got his longevity paid out this year, that would affect his retirement in a positive manner. Jen, you're saying that's a policy?
The longevity policy, I don't think dictates that information into that specifically, so the commissioners would have to also approve and make an amendment to the policy, to the longevity policy for that to happen.
Okay,
These guys would just do the financial side of it.
sure.
The commissioners would.
Okay. So Diane's hours are not an issue, it's the longevity. I understand.
Well, I think it's a legitimate request, but it's not for us, I guess.
So I guess I need to start with commissioners, have them put their input on that.
Yes.
Then come, okay, that makes sense.
And just remember, payroll is 2 weeks behind, so you're still gonna get, they're still gonna get paid on next year's budget regardless. It's not gonna fall, their last paycheck will not be at the end of the year. Because payroll is always 2 weeks behind. And
This could-
payouts are on the last check, so it won't be till 2027.
But this could be done like in November or something to make sure that it is.
Or the 1st of December, or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
We'd have to make sure policy would
yeah.
line up.
So, and then the last thing I have real quick is, if
Oh,
you
my
look,
God.
I appreciate y'all hearing me
He
out
learned
this
from the
morning.
master.
Did you guys have your coffee and everything?
Steve, we said 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I will make this quick, because this is
fine.
just,
You're fine.
Girl.
the last sheet there where I have salaries listed out, okay? The current column, the one on the right, that's this year's salaries. The proposed column, sorry. The
Sorry.
proposed column, that is where salaries need to be for our agency. And I just want to speak to this real quick, because I don't want you to have sticker shock or think I'm being unreasonable. So if you look at the patrol pay of $63,000, that's where I started everything out at. Now, there's 2 reasons I started with that pay. First one is a WPD patrolman, a Washington officer, starts out at $62,900. That's just right across the street from us. If they change their uniform patches, they can make $5,000 more on the year. The other thing is, I know over the years you've heard us compare ourselves to the state police. I know that's probably a little frustrating because we can't compete. State police apparently have unlimited funds, and I don't mean that in a negative manner towards them. But the other second reason why I chose 63,000 as a starting point is because there's 92 counties in Indiana, and I was able to get the starting pay for a deputy for this year to 68 of those counties. I averaged it out, and the average pay was $63,121. That's where I got the starting pay of 63,000. And then for every rank up, I just added $3,000.
Did you do any comparison, Steve, for counties that are our size or anything? I mean,
So, no, of the 68 counties I had, I know some were larger than us, some were smaller than us, and a lot of them had a range. A lot of them
Yeah.
start their deputies from 55 to 75, or from 66 to 90 or something, So, but I always chose the least amount. But no, Tom.
Okay.
So I know some agencies have almost 40 deputies, and other agencies like Crawford County and Martin have 6. I know there's a lot of factors
Yeah.
that come into that, but of 68 of them, I thought that was more than over half, and the average came out to be 63,121. And so again, I don't want you to think we're being unreasonable, but one of the talking points through my campaign as sheriff is public safety, and I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. Public safety is the foundation of an economically prosperous community. When a community is safe, people will want to live and raise families here, and businesses will invest here. But it all starts with a well-funded, well-compensated sheriff's office. And when it comes to first responders, of everyone who's classified as a first responder, police, fire, EMS, there's a few other agencies out there, the reality is police is your true first responders, law enforcement. Because when there's an incident going on, fire and EMS, they have the luxury to stage somewhere away in relative safety. Law enforcement does not get that. We have to go in, we have to deal with the threat and make the scene safe, and then they come in and start rendering aid to the victims. So I don't mean any disrespect to our fire and EMS. God knows I've worked side by side those people for 25 years now, and I appreciate everything they do. That's just the reality of this work. They can stage. We don't have that option. And so that's why I say public safety, it all starts here. The other thing too, I just share briefly is, when Gary took office, he did raise the professionalism bar quite high when he came in. I'm not saying it was extremely low before that, but he really tightened up the ship and raised the bar. And, you know, there's 33,000 people in Davis County. There's only 24 of us that get to wear this uniform and serve the public. And every single one of us are proud of that. We take that seriously, and we try to do our jobs in the most professional, productive, and efficient manner possible. So that's why I say I don't want you to think I'm being unreasonable when I show you these figures. It's just these are the C average salaries across the state. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments about anything.
Let's just look at the proposed sheet and we can do it, but let's make it easy. First, tell us how many is in each one, like chief deputy, there's one.
One chief deputy.
It's on this, it's
Yes.
over here.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
but
basically,
But we're
yes.
gonna move a person, so.
So correct, Tony. So to Tony's point, you're gonna have one chief deputy, you're gonna have one major.
Mhm.
You would essentially have two captains, one captain, one detective captain.
Mhm.
You would have, in fact, I got that listed there. You would have two lieutenants, two detective sergeants, and so then, hold on here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 16 other officers at the patrol salary.
Okay.
And then just real quick, if something else I thought of too is, I know we get longevity, I know we get holiday pay, that all factors into our salary. But I did note that the WPD, for example, they receive a shift differential. So there's a little increase if one works second, they work 8-hour shifts. So they got a day shift, an evening shift, and a night shift. So night shift's paid the highest versus day shift. They also get certification pay. So if you're a K-9 officer, you get a little bit of a bump. If you're a certified instructor, you get a little bit of pay increase for that. And how they do their clothing is they just give the officers, I really don't, it's $15 up to maybe $2,000 a year for clothing. And I know a lot of the guys don't always spend that. They'll maybe every 2 years, they'll go out and spend $1,500 and buy new uniforms and stuff, and then they're good for a couple years. I mean, they may buy boots every year for a couple $100, but they're good, and they're allowed to pocket that. So I put that on there only just to note that, yes, we have our benefits as well that factor in, but so do they as well. And so the $63,000 and the $62,900, that is their base pay before you factor in anything else. But again, any thoughts, comments, questions? I'm happy to.
Anybody?
I don't think at this time, but definitely we'll reach out to you, Steve.
Yeah,
No, we appreciate all your information.
absolutely.
Good stuff.
And I'm looking forward to next year. I'm excited about things, and don't ever hesitate to call me. I may not know the answer, but I will definitely get it for you. Yeah.
You won't answer.
These are my number.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Nathan.
No.
No,
Yes.
it is being recorded.
I brought some copies of our budget if you guys have those. Is that helpful for you?
Wouldn't,
We don't-
Reference them? Okay. Yeah, pass those out. Am I allowed to talk about anything this year?
And this is, just, we're sticking to the budget for next year, yeah. If you wanna come in the next meeting, we could probably get you on that. but-
Oh.
There were some changes from this year.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Here you go. Those are extra.
Okay. All right, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for your time, guys, here representing West Boggs. Talking about the 2027 budget, although we haven't had a chance to meet as a board prior to this, I just knew about this, I think, on Tuesday evening. So normally we would meet, I guess, as the park board and then decide, what changes we wanted. Although we recently did discuss something very pertinent to this just last week. We had a special meeting in regards to some changes that we want to make for this year. So I want to preface by saying West Boggs is doing pretty well. We've actually doubled revenue, it looks like, within 10 years. Within that time frame, we haven't had a lot of change, it looks like, within the staff numbers of full-time staff. And it is kind of stressing our budget a little bit to pay as little as we are and retain our staff in some regards. So I want to talk about, I guess, a couple positions. In particular, the activity director position, we would now be on our 6th activity director in 5 years. This is a difficult position, I would say, and has become more difficult in recent years as we built that large stage. Used to be a lot of daycare almost. We had a summer camp. A lot of that staff would be supervised by this person. I eliminated that because I think it's a much better use of those 5, 6 staff members to, instead of serve just a few kids, we can now serve literally hundreds of thousands of people with those same staff members and money. However, with those changes, the position's a lot harder. It includes nights, weekends, holidays, booking large entertainment, thinking well ahead. We have to make sure that we advertise things correctly, like a year ahead, make sure that everything is dialed in for advertisement, make sure that everything is perfect as far as the event goes. This is a different skill set. I think people like this job, but the wage itself has been difficult for them. In particular, someone recently, basically went, should I say the pay lines? They're making $51,500 before tax. After tax, they're having trouble making rent, paying for their gas, utilities, home life, things like that, and they are now quitting because they simply can't make enough money and they're going to pursue real estate or something on the side. Similarly, we've had turnover in the assistant office position, the maintenance assistant position, and then the gate staff position, all with, I think, averaging more than 5 turnovers in just a few years. And this has been going on prior to my arrival 3 years ago. In contrast, the positions that are paying higher, such as mine, the office manager, maintenance manager, and so forth, there has been 0 to 1 turnover in as much as 10 years. So there's a huge difference there. It's extremely costly to retrain people all the time, especially with this activity director position. It's really important. They're planning a year ahead. They need to be booking concerts. They need to be fundraising. They need to be writing grants. And I think the difference between someone who is experienced, dedicated, well-trained in that position versus someone that might be new, or this turnover that we're having, I believe will result in hundreds of thousands of dollars for revenue for the park. And that would include sponsorships, grants, large events, things like that, the advertising that we can do, and then retaining full bookings on camping are very related to the things that they're doing in that job. So what we've talked about as a board recently is kind of moving our positions into a more level playing field. I don't view the gate manager position or the activity director position as less than or a lower skill set needed than some of these other jobs that are paying a little bit more. And I think that will help with both retention, happiness, the applicant pool that we can have as we move forward. And right now, unfortunately, we're going to be making another switch into a different activity director mid-season. So that stresses the whole team to kind of pick up for those things. That's really what we're looking to do, is kind of more even the playing field for these jobs, and I think that will result in better retention and then ultimately more revenue for the park. I also want to note that there's, as I've been told by the DNR, about 750 parks in the state. We're the only one operating on our own money. This is a totally different skill set than is asked of other parks. It's, I think, easier just to spend money that is then given to you in a budget, but we have to raise it. And so not only are we spending the money, we're having to make sure that we think ahead and run this like a business, and that carries into every department, including the activity director, which you guys may or may not know runs the camp store, so they have to control all that inventory, figure out what we're going to sell when, run the numbers on that, run the staff. They're running the events that we're doing, planning ahead, doing advertisement, grants, building the whole department, running the stage. So it's a big job, or can be. So I've told the board, I work for you guys and the board. We can work within whatever parameters that we have, but if we want to continue to grow, I think this is important to consider. In addition to that, we just had a meeting about it was a special meeting about the office, or partially. There were some other things that we discussed, but the office position was misclassified back in December of 2023. So that position was supposed to be getting overtime. They were not. We will be repaying all of that overtime for the past 2-3 years. So that's obviously costly, but I think that that position's needed to grow for some time. This individual will be retiring in the next few years. She's expressed, sooner than later, and maybe hang on a couple, 3 years possible, but maybe sooner than that. The systems that we've used there are pretty old. So she's done a wonderful job, but she set it all up herself. It hasn't allowed the, oversight of other management to be able to see those systems. They're created in Excel through her. We need to be moving into QuickBooks or something like that, and that's something I've looked at for 3 years or so. They're not able to keep up with the job itself within 80 hours. So if they're not able to do that without overtime, it's very difficult to completely switch systems again. Plus, in addition to that, we've been moving offices, and we're going to be needing to move offices again. Some pictures here. The office has been leaking for like 20 years. It's pretty unacceptable, I think. I've actually lived all over the world and worked a lot of places. I've never seen an office this bad. It stinks so bad that, I'm serious, I mean, people wore hairnets in the office like to cover their hair because it stank like mold so bad. It's very difficult to retain staff. I didn't really have an office. Flooded continuously every time it snowed. There were, drip in. We've lost paperwork that's important. It's common to see lizards, mice, all kinds of rodents running through there.
And this has been that way for how long?
A very long time.
And
More than-
there's no foresight on the board to fix that over time?
I imagine it's money.
Yeah, but I mean, you can still set a little bit aside periodically as you go. But now, I mean,
I've been
how
here
many
3
years?
years. We've fixed almost every building in the park.
Yeah.
So we're moving.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Sounds like we have a plan now.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't want to speak to anything before I was there.
no, I'm just surprised that that wouldn't be done.
Yeah, and I think this was important to get more staff.
Gotcha.
This was a huge deal that I couldn't get people to work there. They'd walk in and they're like, man, this environment's really rough.
Right.
Here's a picture of WC.
Yeah.
There's electronics here. This entire floor is completely wet. Here's the back office where we keep all the papers from 1968. Standing water on the floor. Here's a picture of the ceiling. All the corners look like this. You can see exposed wiring. Everything's leaking. This building's basically going to be condemned. It's not really fixable. I've had a few people in. It's just rotten. And I don't want to, again, speak before I was there, but some of these buildings are just at their lifespan. They're from 1972. The office, all of our bathrooms get, say, thousands and thousands of complaints every year. It's not that they're dirty. They're just at their lifespan. So, yes, we have a plan, but these things are millions of dollars. Even with, 50% grant matching, it's very expensive. So to rebuild the whole park at one time, the lake, operate on our own, those kind of things are pretty difficult, considering that other parks, in fact, no one else is able to do this. So we've had some tremendous community support. I think it is working. But it will stress us this year to get the DNR grant match, because I think we're almost going to have to risk everything that we have in order to get a new office, 2 bathrooms, some other stuff that they would want to require in addition to that, and also make sure that we're okay to weather any kind of storm, literally that may happen in the park. So that's something you consider for this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, as far as 27 budget, we will need an additional office manager, and then that person can then, I think, help move offices, help set us into the path forward that we need for QuickBooks or something similar. I know they use Lao. Something that we can move forward into an efficient system, and then do the additional work needed in that office until our current office manager retires. And at that point, I think we could maybe still run with 2, because I think things might be more efficient. It also depends on how much we've grown in that time. But I think it would be an extreme mistake to not allow this, and then maybe get someone in as an expert to switch to QuickBooks. I think that may force retirement. I think that if we don't have someone to learn this job over the course of at least a year, it puts us in a really bad spot. This is a big job. I mean, there's many thousands of things to know. There's a lot of reporting. There's a lot of money coming in. I've had these discussions with the board. This isn't something you can just learn quickly. I've tried to learn that job. I get interrupted constantly. She gets interrupted constantly. It doesn't work that well for me to just sit in there for months and learn this. It's not really possible.
Is she logging like the processes though? So like when she does retire, she can hand those processes to someone else?
Yes, but they are now incorrect processes. It's kind of the issue. So they're not efficient processes, I would put it.
But there is something.
Yes, but I don't want it to stay the same.
Right, so
Just like our gate, I
it needs
don't-
revamped.
Completely. Just like our office and gates policies, I don't think any policies at the gate have remained over the course of 3 years. I think we've literally changed everything. Office, I think, will be similar. You know, the reports and stuff remain the same, but the way that we're doing it won't. And I think that'll help the auditing staff out here too. So things will, you know, be turned in timely, correct, efficiently. It allows more transparency between multiple parties. You know, I'm okay with them seeing everything. You know, if everybody can log in, I think that's better for everyone.
Couple things.
Yeah.
Not throwing stones, but an overtime issue for that far back, I struggle with that.
Can you elaborate, sir?
Huh?
Can you elaborate? What do you mean?
Why did it go on? Why has it gone on since 2003?
Wow.
This position was pushed to be reclassified as salary without overtime. That was incorrectly done. So that was shortly after my arrival. I did not push to do that. That was kind of conveyed to me through the board to do so. I think that was to create more efficiency, just make sure that that job's getting done. Like my position may require overtime, but I'm on salary. And then Addie Roker was a consultant that the county used recently, and she had us all do surveys about our positions and classify them based on what the position entails. The office position does not meet the expectations that something exempt would be. So her position is no longer classified as exempt, therefore we owe her the overtime back.
What is the dollar amount roughly for that overtime penalty?
It's gonna be more than $20,000,
Roughly 20,000?
more than that.
In current FLSA laws, now that we've determined the situation, the maximum, we only have to go back 2 years. But there was excuse me, the park board had suggested, because her overtime per year was over 20,000. So I think the park board looked to potentially move it to an exempt position. But under the FLSA laws, they did not qualify. And you guys actually have the determination and the final factor on what department or what employees are exempt or non-exempt. And within that parameter, it never got to this point, so our salary ordinance did not accommodate anyway. So they did this internally, and then once questions and things arose, questions got asked, we reached out to Addie with Wagner, Irwin, and Sheely, which we're contracted, subcontracted with. And so she then has been in contact, and they went through this process, and she's been helping us migrate through where we're at today, as in what is or is not.
So that board determined that position, never brought it to us, made that determination. in
They
between?
did that internally, and it didn't come here before you guys to actually make it official. And so they were treating it as such. And now that this has come to light, now we're gonna go back and get it corrected.
Legally, you're required 2 years, as I understand it. How I see it and the board sees it, we'll just go back to the beginning, which is, I view it as a park mistake. It's not her mistake. So I think that could, be approved by you guys which way we're going, but, you know. So anyway, the, main factor there too is that, okay, now we have overtime that we're not gonna wanna pay anymore, so we can't get the job done within the 80 hours that we have. We need an extra staff member. And to note, I don't think there's been any change in staff over the course of that time. That we're doubling in revenue. We're serving about 500,000 customers. There's a lot of stuff flowing through there. There's more change to be made. In addition to that, the upcoming retirement, I think this is what I would like to do.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yeah, I had 2 more points.
Mhm.
The facilities. I don't know about anybody else here, but I plan on making it up there and look at the offices. Is it still right there behind the house,
No.
hooked onto the shop?
I have moved them, and our maintenance team was amazing to help with that. We are now in a temporary office. We have found that one to be just literally unacceptable. It was like a health risk at this point. So we renovated Cedarwood Shelter into an office, which is
Is
actually,
that the one on the hill?
yes, it's actually quite nice. I don't believe it's a long-term to like public code situation. We need another office, which is what we're working on now to get a grant for. We have one designed, priced out and all that, so we'll be looking at that this year. Cedarwood Shelter is nowhere near big enough to accommodate what we need. It's working now, and we're not breathing constant mold anymore. It's, wading through water or wondering if her office is leaking or what animals are in there in the morning. So now it's an acceptable situation. Maintenance is now using that as storage.
Okay. Still, I don't know if anybody else wants to, but we're gonna go up and poke around.
Poke around. I would love to give you guys a tour.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of what our team's doing right now. The beach house in particular looks amazing. We're halfway through that. There's a lot of stuff that we're rebuilding.
And then the antiquated software that she's using,
She's using spreadsheets, right?
That she built herself, yes.
Yeah, so that's.
Which is great. I don't want to discredit somebody that came in and did something 22 years ago
Yeah.
and set up the company, but this isn't the way we need to be going.
with that thought in mind and the fact that she's gonna retire here, maybe the auditor's office can look at some of the systems they're using, some of the systems that we're using, and see if we can't get a more unified
Sounds great. Yeah, I
way of
totally
doing
agree.
it.
I totally agree.
It was nice for me to volunteer them.
Yeah, I wonder.
Internally, they have to have their own system. I mean, they have access to submit claims and stuff through our system and that sort of thing, but state board requires them because they have their own cash flow, they have an outside account, so they have to use it in its own bucket. So the system that we use is government and schools. They don't have just a parks
No, but there's-
department type situation.
There's small,
Correct.
accounting packages that could take care of what they're doing.
Right,
And
so it wouldn't be the-
Spreadsheets are not efficient for
Correct.
doing that type of work, so that's an efficiency problem anyway.
Sure.
So,
Totally agree. I've seen it for 3 years, in
Yeah.
addition to other stuff that we need to fix. We just haven't had time to get to that. As you guys know, we've switched tons of stuff. We switched the entire gate system. We switched our mapping, the way that we're booking, the way that we're doing about every procedure and policy has changed. This is one that's been on my radar for 3 years, but the amount of time that it's going to take to do this, we just haven't had it. In addition to that, the turnover. I mean, like I mentioned, we've had, 4 or 5 assistant office managers in the last few years. So, these positions that are paying lower, I think there's definitely some correlation of why these folks are leaving to that pay. So I think, looking at this through a business lens, not a government lens, this is how I would run this company because it is a business. We're having to do our own
Hours are different,
operating.
nights, weekends, I mean, it's a lot different, yeah.
It is. Now, in fairness, the office isn't really working those schedules.
Okay.
The activities. Is
Activities.
Maintenance, they get called in, I get called in, things like that.
And then
Maintenance is, yes.
the last column's got the little red marks. What are we looking at there?
Those are the ones that have changed. So as you remember, we came before you a little bit after the budget. So those would be the true salaries, I believe.
Those are current.
Correct. Yes.
All those numbers are current.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And the activity one is the one that's pertinent right now. So again, I know you guys want to talk about 27, but I'll need to talk about 26. The board is going to vote to raise that this year, and I want to advertise that like yesterday. Because we've got our season starting, and I think we'll be able to, hopefully get a little bit more interest in that job, especially people that'll stay.
So the activities director, is that the 11?
That is the director.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
51.5
that's what I wondered.
at the moment.
Yeah, 11:30.
Yeah. And again, this was a special meeting that we discussed this stuff. We're hoping to get things kind of dialed in the regular meeting to where it votes, but we're wanting somewhere between, I'd say 55 and someone threw out 65. I don't think it needs to be that high. High 50s, 60, I think is really where we're going to see a lot of interest, retention, and hopefully added value in these positions.
I think it would be pretty hard to evaluate your office manager in the overtime. I mean, you look at the assistant office manager, hell, they've only worked $8,600 worth of, I mean,
Yeah.
why don't you just get another second office manager and get rid of the assistant manager position? Just upgrade the thing. I mean, you've been living without it anyhow, putting pressure on the,
Well, it's rotated, so we really haven't been living without it. It's I've had 1, 2, like 4, so it's
I
been
mean, you've been living without it, trust me.
kind of, yeah. But this is still needed. I mean, they do the daily deposits, they take in the money, they help with the checks.
Okay.
It's still very needed.
Okay.
In my extreme opinion, I really think that we need 3 for now until
Okay.
that retirement takes place. Plus it puts us in a real bind if,
Do we have
and honestly, the
study
assistant position
of the
doesn't
position?
know the office manager's job at all.
I see.
The study
Very
that
little of it.
Consultant
So
that came in, they did the.
you're really riding on that one person very heavily for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're putting pressure on everybody else if you can't
Yes.
keep them staffing.
then-
That's,
It will be a straight disaster.
How are they on cash?
And then the extra
The
person can
office
help
manager didn't
get
show up for a
everything
day.
over
Send
to
us-
the new system, and then it should be able to run with two.
Yeah, and I think eventually
All
we
of
may
the
be able to
categories.
run with two. I don't think that is impossible,
Yeah.
so I'm
Once
not.
it becomes more efficient.
Yeah, exactly. And we can reevaluate it then. But what I would want is someone that's got
I
more
understand.
experience. Our assistant office manager is great. She's just not as experienced as someone that I think could immediately take over office. And she's expressed that too. She's just,
And how much is Martin contributing? Exactly.
I think someone with more experience can do that, transition us into the future, hopefully take Debbie's job.
yeah,
We can reevaluate at that point.
I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
But I would want that as soon as possible, I think. Given that this overtime situation takes place, we can either keep paying overtime, there's no way for me to not do that.
Yeah,
I
I
do
understand.
not have an ability to do that. It's been talked about that the new assistant can do that, but I have other things for them. It's not,
What's the percentage of Martin, and most of it's in Davies County, what percentage is in Martin County?
land-wise, you mean?
Yep.
I'm guessing at least 90% or more in Davies County. I don't know
Like
that
10% in Martin County?
if that, it could be less.
And they contribute nothing?
What do you mean?
Martin County doesn't contribute to your,
Not through tax base. They've contributed a lot through other ways.
Do
Like
they?
the Martin County Community Foundation
Okay.
has given us tens of thousands of dollars, shown us exceptional support in other ways.
right.
Really?
We have had some through the tourism board, so similar, I would say.
I mean, it's outside organizations, though, it's not governmental.
That's correct, yes. Now, I do need to ask them recently, and they've expressed some interest, but we have a 50-50 grant match that we're gonna look at, and I really need some new bathrooms and a new office. So they've expressed, possibly giving us some money, so I need to start fundraising through them for that. That grant will be due in August. So any sources of money would be awesome for that. Like I said, I wanna leverage almost as much as the park can, which obviously scares me, but we have to do it. I'm getting thousands of complaints on the condition of the bathrooms. We need a new office. It's not
Are
optional.
those all throughout the park, or they're by the campground, or down by E section, or
There's
which
really
restaurant?
only one that's newer, and honestly, it wasn't built well. I think that one's like 12, 15 years old, but the walls aren't straight. There's just problems. We fixed it up. It looks pretty nice. So one of them, back by Bobcat, is quite nice, I would say. The one here, and it looks better. As Marilyn said, like the paint was peeling and everything. We fixed that last year. And then the beach house bathrooms will be pretty nice because we're redoing those. That literally looked like the Gaza Strip 2 years ago. It looked like a grenade was inside. So we're redoing that building completely, inside and outside, put a new roof on. The rest of the buildings were all between, I believe, 68 and 72 when those were built, and they're just at their lifespan. They're just old.
Those are all in the campground areas where people come in to rent and, yeah.
And again, we have close to 500,000 visitors. They're all using these. There's hidden costs too. So water leaks and stuff, I got clay tiles, there are roots growing through them. We're digging up pipes all the time. Things back up, things don't work. So I think we'll be more efficient with these new bathrooms too. And then, the maintenance team will be happier as well, working on newer stuff. So I think it is almost essential upgrades. There are things that I would like to do, we're just not there yet, as far as helping services or more, pretty things around the park. We need our infrastructure fixed.
Very good.
So I know you guys want me to be brief. Do you guys have questions about, I guess, budget in particular? You kind of have an idea of what I want to do? Do we need to decide today?
No,
Okay.
we're just taking
No.
your information.
Yeah,
No,
we're
no,
just-
Okay.
We'll have other meetings.
Yeah.
We just.
Yeah, so basically I'm trying to streamline, in particular, the position up front, so what we call the customer service manager. They're running 2 parks right now as far as Glendale and there. We've never really had a manager for Glendale. I think it's been a difficulty too. It's more than half an hour away. So they're doing that. They're taking in close to $2 million in money through the front gate. Not quite that much, but a lot of money, a lot of programs going through there, a lot of systems, a lot of management of the lake residents, the docks, the posts that we rent, all those things are really coming through that front gate office. So that one, and then the activity position, I feel those are the ones that I most want to kind of level the playing field with pay, and I think that'll help with turnover. I think those would be kind of the big things, and then of course that additional office person. So I don't know how that works. If you guys want to, if you allow that to be a timed thing, like, hey, we'll allow this for so much years or whatever, and then we reevaluate, or if that becomes a permanent thing. I understand how, government budgets, it's hard to go back on things if you create a new position, but that's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. I do have P&Ls too. I mean, we're making money, it's not that big of an issue, and we're making money in addition to fixing a ton of stuff. So maybe one day if we kind of get the park dialed into where it's not taking extreme maintenance to catch up for 35 years, then, these numbers might show better. But I do have those. And then, Placer AI data, I've got job descriptions if you're interested in those or whatever you'd like to see.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
good. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I guess,
For 27, you'll probably have to get on the agenda, right? Or
He's
26,
talking
I'm
this year,
sorry, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Send me the documentation and I
Yeah.
can put it on their agenda so they
Yep.
can review it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else out there that you know of?
Those were the only two that had reached out to come and speak, and then I've sent you guys in your email the stuff from IT and the assessor's office.
Okay.
Julie Riker has been gone to a conference, so she is trying to put something together, so we should have something beginning of next week for her. Other than that, that's all I got.
We don't need a motion to adjourn or nothing.
No. But you
All
can
right.
wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you.